after a month-long recess, and currently they are engaged in discussing and planning just what will be the import or the outlook or the highlights of the 2018-2019 budget estimates. Also scheduled, a motion on a report of the Committee of the Whole House that considered the Energy Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of the year 2017. Also spelled out in this bill is the Energy Policy and Integrated Energy Plan that is in line with the constitutional mandate given to the national government of policy making and that of implementation of national government policies assigned to counties and other implementing agencies. This afternoon, a committee of the whole House will also consider clauses contained in the Petroleum Exploration, Development and Production Bill, National Assembly Bill number 48 of 2017. And this one seeks to provide a framework for contracting, exploration and development of petroleum, together with production of petroleum discovered within licensed petroleum exploration blocks. It provides a framework for the safe cessation of upstream petroleum operations and also proposes to repeal the Petroleum Exploration and Production, Chapter 308 of the Laws of Kenya.
As your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic, let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interest you have committed to our charge. Amen. Proceed. I think we have quorum.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of Majority Party. Okay. Minority Whip.
Yeah, thank you.
Majority Whip, sorry. Majority Whip.
Majority Whip. State Department of East African Community Integration. 2, the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2016 and certificates therein. A, Teso South Constituency. B, Dhiwa Constituency. C, Funyula Constituency. D, Webuye Constituency. E, Mount Elgon Constituency. F, Budalangi Constituency. G, Kapuchai Constituency.
Order number 7, statements.
Leader of Majority Party.
I like that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. You know, Honorable Oscar Sudi was of Kapsaret was consulting me, and I was telling him, you know, I don't want to get involved in maize. Speaker, I told him, I better be involved in the business of camels, not maize. I'm sure even Honorable Wandai can vouch for that. If it is camels, yes, but not maize. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision, Speaker, it's important for members to know that on Thursday, the 14th June 2018, which is next Thursday, the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, Henry Rotich, shall be presenting the budget highlights for the financial year 2018-2019 to the House plenary. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, June the 12th, 2018, at the rise of the House to consider the business for the coming week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, very well. Let's go to the next one. Honorable Dr. Chris Wamalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 42, 2C, I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee of Transport, Public Works and Housing regarding the aircraft that crashed, that occurred on Tuesday, June 2018 after the takeoff from Kitale airstrip, which unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, we've been told it crashed and we have no survivors. In Aberdare Forest, Mr. Speaker. This airline, Mr. Speaker, is called SACS, which we've used it regularly for those people who come from Trans-Nzoia and its environs. We've used it before. And Mr. Speaker, my concern is about our preparedness as a nation and the institutions responsible for emergency response in tackling such kind of emergencies. Because, Mr. Speaker, it took Kenya Civil Aviation Authority even 6 hours to confirm that the plane had gone missing. Such efforts were going on. It has taken more than 3 days for aerial location for the missing aircraft, Mr. Speaker. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, on my behalf and the great people of Kimini constituency, Trans-Nzoia County at large, to send a message of condolences to the family and the friends. And it's my prayer to the Almighty God to give the family strength and comfort at this difficult time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the pilot by the name Barbara Wangeshi, she had flown me several times. We go to the same church. The mother is an active member of the church. Mr. Speaker, it is very, very scaring. We don't know where we are heading to as a country, Mr. Speaker, at this particular time. I know the country is mourning. The families are crying. But we want to pray for them. As the book of Revelation says, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Amalwa.
that the Lord will wipe their tears, Mr. Speaker. It's only the Lord who will wipe their tears.
Okay. Now,
Mr. Speaker,
you know what?
it is
The
my
issue
humble
is you are making a request for a statement.
I'm mourning, Mr. Speaker,
and
allow
therefore,
me.
And therefore, you'll have an opportunity when that statement is brought. I do not want you to convert it into a sermon, at least for now.
Yes.
You can even reserve that for Sunday, by the way, this Sunday. But I'm saying you will get when you'll be having the statement, you will bring all these issues. But I wanted to give an opportunity to two other members.
Yes,
so that's why I'm trying
Trans-Nzoia.
to have you save time for them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. So have you?
I'm about to finish, Mr.
Okay.
Speaker.
Proceed. I know, of course,
Mr.
it's a
Speaker,
difficult time for you.
I want to thank God I'm existing today because we had booked my return flight on the same flight. Then I decided not to travel to Kitale, but in the spirit of handshake, to go to Meru for Madaraka Day celebrations. After Meru, I had to go to Embu for the burial of the mother of our beloved Speaker Muturi. Then from there, I had to go to Mount Kenya area to visit my in-laws, Mr. Speaker. So I really thank God. That is actually, I'm now existing. You can imagine, Mr. Speaker, if I'll have gone to Trans-Nzoia at that particular time, Mr. Speaker, maybe Chris Wamala will be no more. So please give honorable members, it is a time of mourning, and we call upon the relevant authorities to speed up in terms of the investigation so that we'll be able to know
But
what transpired.
You have
I
made
thank
that
you, Mr.
request.
Speaker.
So, let me give this opportunity to member for Saboti. Saboti. Let's have him speak. Maybe he will confirm the rumors that are going round.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I don't know if it's the right time to send messages of condolence because we are not sure whether they are alive or dead. Is it an official record? Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. In that regard, I'll also join my colleague in sending my message, a deep message of condolence to the family. But what is peculiar is that as a country, we have failed to rescue our fellow countrymen where the plane was and actually try to save, to try to get to the wreckage. I think as a country, we are doing badly. And maybe the minister, the relevant authorities concerned must come forth and actually report to this House on whether we need some technological, help from other authorities, because we could have saved our countrymen.
Honorable Amisi, just a brief comment that would suffice.
Yeah.
You will still have an opportunity when the matter is brought again, when a statement is given. So you should wind down up, please.
Yeah, but the point is we need to work on our rescue mission as a country. We are doing badly, and it is sad. Some of us use the plane on almost weekly basis, and we could be as well as being victims. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well. Honorable member for Marakwet East. And members, you should be asking, you should be bringing in issues that you think the statement should contain. Let's not do so much about the condolences and probably, actually, let's be specific.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the Honorable Wamalwa because he's brought a very important issue about the preparedness of the country whenever there is a disaster like the air crash, which is, we have lost about 10 Kenyans or so, Mr. Speaker. But I also want to remind the Honorable Wamalwa that the same Bible is quoting in the book of Ecclesiastes. It says there is time and place for everything other events. So your time was not yet, Chris Wamalwa. So let's just say, Mr. Speaker, I think there is need, Mr. Speaker, for this country and this House, Mr. Speaker, to see on how we can have a serious disaster management unit in the country, Mr. Speaker, so that in case there is such a disaster, Mr. Speaker, there is a serious team, including all the machinations and equipment, Mr. Speaker, because it has taken so long, Mr. Speaker, of which even if there were survivors, Mr. Speaker, it was impossible because taking about 48 hours to locate the aircraft, Mr. Speaker, it was very too long. Mr. Speaker, I also want to send my condolences to the families and relatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. So I think, honorable members, really, we can save, I can see there's a lot of interest. Maybe I can give 2 last ones. Let's start with Honorable Nyonka, and then for gender purposes, we will see, I will pick somebody, some honorable member here.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to say thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to also mention a few things about this flight. Mr. Speaker, last weekend on Sunday, when I happened to travel to Kitale, when I was with Honorable Moses Kuria, in fact, what happened is that on return, that is the flight we were supposed to use, but all the flights were full. Mr. Speaker, I know many members of this House may not know that Kitale airstrip is the one of the very busy airstrips in the Republic of Kenya. And indeed, like Honorable Chris Wamalwa has said, the problem with what happened in this accident worries many of us. Indeed, many of our colleagues in the last 2 weeks have been traveling because of public hearings which we've been having about the budget. Some of us traveled because we went on holiday, and others were traveling back to Nairobi because they were coming on taking children to school. As many of the colleagues here have stated, Mr. Speaker, it is true that disaster management systems in this country leave a lot to be desired. Very fortunately, members of this House, particularly the committees which are involved, have the capacity of actually putting resources together so that we are able to have disaster preparedness in case there is an emergency. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, in Kenya, what happens is that once an incident like this happens, then everything ends after about 1 week. I really plead with this House, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we are actually, since we are in the budget making process, so that we can be in a position to allocate resources so that in case there's a problem, then we can solve it immediately. With those very many remarks, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and we wish the family comfort in this very sad occasion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
From Honorable Shamala, and then that will be it.
Is it on? Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to express my sincere condolences to all the persons that have perished in this tragic crash that took place 2 days ago. In as much as we point fingers to the disaster management of this country, I think that we must ask ourselves some pertinent questions. We see a lot of airlines being registered in this country, and we welcome that move because it opens up the country for not only Kenyans, but also tourists. But two pertinent questions must be asked. Why is it that it took so long to locate this crash? One, did the airline have an emergency locator transmitter? It appears no. Second, did it have satellite tracking? It appears no. So in as much as when one goes to investigate the causes of this plane crash, these two issues will have to be interrogated. And if indeed they did not have these two crucial elements within this aircraft, then we shall have to ask ourselves why. Once again, I express my sincere condolences to the family of the victims.
Okay, next order. Next order. I can see many members want to speak on this. I see Honorable Member for Pokot South. I see Honorable Member for Endebess. Let's save it for when the statement is read. Let's save it. Let's proceed. Really, I decided to give a few members. It is. Yes, and in the meantime, let me recognize in the speakers gallery, no, in the public gallery, pupils and students from Kairu Rumwe Girls Secondary School, Gatundu North of Kiambu County. Also students from Jomo Kenyatta Boys High School, from Bahati, Nakuru County. Students from William Ngiru Gitau Secondary School, Githunguri, Kiambu. And students also from Sukari Presbyterian Academy, Ruiru, Kiambu. They are here to, of course, learn from the works of the National Assembly. Well, let me also recognize pupils from Moi Educational Center, Nairobi. And they should feel very much welcome. In fact, I'm told the kid of yours truly is also in that school. Maybe they should pass the regards. Okay, next order.
Order number 8, motion report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget estimates for the financial year 2018-2019. General debate, third allotted day.
Well, are we supposed to get something from the chair budget? Yes, you have you have it. Proceed. To contribute as a matter of right by virtue of the fact that there are issues which they are supposed to do. I think when you are coming, you should always prepare to be with your cards. Honorable Chair, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I had not noticed that you had given me the mic from here. Otherwise, I did justice yesterday in terms of the dispatch box. Honorable Speaker, I want to give notice of motion, notice of amendment to the motion on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget estimates for the financial year 2018-2019, that the motion be amended by inserting the following words immediately after the word schedule, that subject to any amendments in the Committee of Supply. Honorable Chair, this is to be able to accommodate any of the issues that may come up within the contributions of members in this second reading stage. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to ask Honorable the member for Ntonyiri to second.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Okay. Very well. So I propose the question that the motion be amended by inserting the following words immediately after the word schedule, subject to any amendment in the Committee of Supply. I put the question, which is that the motion be amended by inserting the following words immediately after the word schedule, subject to any amendments in the Committee of Supply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Okay, let's go to the next one. Honorable members, we'll proceed from where we left yesterday. And I'm informed the Chair, Defense and Foreign Relations Committee was supposed to have taken the floor yesterday. He was absent with permission. So can you please proceed, and then we'll open to the plenary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to thank you for indulging me yesterday. To be away, I was to present this proposal yesterday, but I was away with permission, as you have said. And therefore, I stand to support the motion as amended this afternoon by the Chair for Budget and Appropriation Committee. And Mr. Speaker, the Defense and Foreign Relations Committee oversight for government ministries and agencies. One, the Ministry of Defense. Second, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. Third, the Ministry of East African Community and Northern Corridor Development. And fourth, the National Intelligence Service. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to debate this motion in a form of three clusters, because two of the ministries that we oversight are under the national security sector. That is the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of, not the ministry, but the National Intelligence Service. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is clustered under the administration sector, and the Ministry of East African Community is under the what we call the General Economic and Commercial Affairs sector. Mr. Speaker, insecurity threats remain alive, with the Somali-based Al-Shabaab threatening for attacks as the holy month of Ramadan continues. And on the diplomatic front, Kenya is on the offensive, with the recent opening of a mission in Havana, Cuba, and more lineup in the year 2018-2019 financial year. Mr. Speaker, in the medium-term expenditure framework sector classification, as I have said, Defense and National Intelligence Service are classified under the national security sector, while the Foreign Affairs and International Trade is classified under the Public Administration and International Relations, and the Ministry of East African Community and Northern Corridor Development is classified under the General Economic Commercial Affairs sector, Mr. Speaker. And these sectors, Mr. Speaker, are a key in the delivery of goals and objectives of the 3 pillars of Vision 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the Big 4. Mr. Speaker, following the tabling of these estimates, my committee, that is the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations, held a briefing meeting by the Parliamentary Budget Office and subsequently held consultative meeting with the ministries under this docket, and on which it exercised oversight. And the committee meetings took place from Monday 14th to Thursday 17th, May 2018. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to note that the national security sector have been funded to a tune of 111 billion for the Ministry of Defense and Kenya shillings 31.2 billion for the National Intelligence Service against a resource requirement of 121 billion and Kenya shillings 43 billion respectively. Mr. Speaker, the allocation for the sector will be utilized to provide a secure environment that is safe and conflict-free, to promote public confidence, and also to integrate the various sectors of the economy. Mr. Speaker, a secure environment attracts investment to a country, as no investor would want to invest in a trouble and conflict-infested society. Additionally, the resources will go towards security intelligence and counterintelligence, modernization and expansion of surveillance system, and operational support infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, it is noted that the investment that has been put in these 2 government agencies, that is Defense and National Intelligence Service, in the security sector has yielded some positive fruits seen in the reduction of terrorist attacks over the last 2 or 3 years. Mr. Speaker, national security is a prerequisite in providing an enabling environment for implementation of the flagship project for Vision 2030, such as LAPSET, ensuring exploitation of natural resources, such as oil for development, protecting the population, and other assets against an ever-growing threat of terrorism. Mr. Speaker, improved security will also contribute to better environment of doing business and bring in more tourists. This sector is therefore critical to the survival and development of a country. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is important to say that these are enablers for the realization of national goals, including the Big 4, Vision 2030, as well as regional goals on Africa Agenda 2063 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. Speaker, under the foreign relation, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs proposed allocation amounts to Kenya shillings 17.1 billion against a resource requirement of Kenya shillings 36 billion. This gap is huge and may affect the operation of our foreign missions abroad. But in view of the limited resources, Mr. Speaker, against the many wants of the country, my committee is optimistic that the ministry will be considered for additional resources in the supplementary to enable them undertake some critical activities which have not been factored in this budget. These activities, Mr. Speaker, include: 1, the construction of a new ministry headquarters at an estimated cost of 4 billion Kenya shilling. 2, opening of 5 fully-fledged diplomatic missions, that is in Accra, the working capital under the recurrent to cater for training, equipment, and capacity building of trainers and researchers. Mr. Speaker, at the invitation of His Excellency, the President, Kenya will be hosting the Sustainable Blue Economy Conference from 26 to 28 November 2018. There is no allocation of funds in the 2018-2019 financial year. The total cost of hosting this conference will be Kenya shillings 800 million. Mr. Speaker, nevertheless, with these limited resources, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Ouda, no, two members cannot stand at the same time. Yes. But what is it, Honorable Member for Kisumu?
Mr.
Town?
Speaker.
What is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, consultations are allowed.
It's true.
But please, Mr. Speaker, protect the honorable member on the floor. Because the majority leader and his team are making a lot of noise, Mr. Speaker.
You see,
we want to hear what is going on, Mr. Speaker. These consultations are allowed, but Mr. Speaker, protect the honorable member.
Honorable Ouda, I know you know one thing for sure, especially noting the background that you come from. You know, in the August House, no member makes noise. They only consult loudly once in a while. Now, but again, Honorable Ouda, can you imagine the member who is contributing has not asked for protection? Now, if you are to ask for protection, you should be asking for protection for yourself.
Mr. Speaker, I've been asking for protection,
What is it, leader of majority party? What is it, leader of majority?
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ouda, the member for Kisumu Central, you know, is still living in the county assembly. Number one, you have corrected him that we don't say you are making noise. And secondly, I want to inform him that there is the Hansard in the National Assembly. You don't need to follow what the member is saying. At the end of the day, tomorrow you can get the Hansard and follow what everything has been said. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy. Today is the first day I'm seeing him in the House. I don't know where he has been. It's very, and I don't know whether he has made his maiden speech. In fact, Mr. Speaker, instead of
The ministry will focus on expanding Kenya's diplomatic representation and footprint across the globe and strengthening Kenya's leadership role in shaping global agenda at the bilateral and multilateral levels. To aid in the achievement of the Big Four, Mr. Speaker, the ministry shall focus engagement with the countries and regions which have comparative advantage to drive Kenya's agenda in the Big Four and lobby to translate the current enabling business environment to become attraction for long-term and sustained investment. Mr. Speaker, as this House may be aware, regional integration is key to our development in this region and the wider African continent. Economic partnership, Mr. Speaker, therefore play a critical role for as far as Vision 2030, Sustainable Development Goal, as well as Agenda Africa 2063. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is a leading player in championing for regional integration, and this is where the Ministry of East African Community and Northern Corridor Development come in within the region and globally. It is noted that Kenya was among the first two African countries to ratify the African Continental Free Trade Area and the COMESA EAC SADC Tripartite Free Trade Area, that is TFTA, and actually Kenya and Ghana were the first two countries to ratify those agreements. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of East African Community and Northern Corridor Development play a critical role under this arrangement, being in charge of coordination of regional integration activities. But with a proposed budgetary allocation of Kenya shillings 1.09 billion against a resource requirement of Kenya shilling 1.9 billion, the resources during the medium-term period for financial year 2018-2019, 2020-2021 will be geared toward improving implementation of East African Custom Unions, among others. But I want to say, because of time, Mr. Speaker, my committee observed that the ministry was not allocated adequate resources to enable it operationalize its activities in line with additional mandate of Northern Corridor Development, LAPSET, and South Sudan liaison office. Some of the critical areas not funded amount to 406 million Kenya shillings. However, Mr. Speaker, the committee noted that there was only one pending bill, and that was with the Ministry of Defense of 858 million, which dates back to 1990, that is 28 years old. And this pending bill has been a subject of a court dispute, which eventually was awarded by a high court, totaling to 1.4 billion, inclusive of interest and accrued. But through negotiation, 1 minute please, Mr. Speaker, The ministry was agreed to pay 800 million, but it was not 850, but not factored in the budget. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank your office and that of the clerk and members of my committee and my secretariat and members of the Appropriation and Budget Committee for having considered our recommendation in this report. I beg to support.
So now we have finished with the chairs of the departmental committees, so it's open to the rest of the membership. And we will start with the member for Teso North, Honorable Oku Kaunya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In contributing to this motion on the appropriation, I would wish to, first of all, thank the chairman and the committee for the work they did. And I would like to point out that in terms of the provisions that have been given, there are key areas that have really been addressed, though not adequately. In terms of national security, which we know is a major driver to the Big Four agenda, we talk of police welfare, particularly the housing, which we hope, according to the budget, that will provide for 20,000 housing. Mr. Speaker, I would propose that since affordable housing is a major factor and one of the major four agenda, that the Budget Committee considers that a large section of what we are providing as affordable housing should go to the police to house the officers so that they are able to deliver on their expectations. And secondly, the issue of police reforms. In terms of the budget, of course, one recommendation that perhaps needs to be taken into account is that the question of reforms, which has taken over 20 years as we try to achieve what we want, where the public will be satisfied with the service provided by our security agencies, one of the things that needs to be taken into account in terms of the budget is the disaggregation aspect. The budget, particularly the utilization, ends up usually at the division level in terms of police. It would be an important step if we want to achieve results on the ground to make sure that the budgets reach the police station and the AP post level where services are given. Apart from that, we want, of course, to thank the department because already for the chiefs, some amount of money has been provided. I'm very happy that the committee gave this money to filling the gap, the skills gap. That is by training our youngsters to get skills that are essential. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, as I support this motion. Thank you.
Very well. Let's have Honorable Raso, member for Saku.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the budget report that is before the House. Mr. Speaker, on the onset, I want to say that the budget making where this House is involved should not be an annual issue. As this House passes the budget, it must truly reflect that on the ground, the people we represent must see the effect of the passage of a budget by this House. Mr. Speaker, for the constituency that I represent, I am very disappointed that the Badassa Dam that has been under construction since 2008. All of a sudden, it has disappeared from the budget in 2017-18. I think we need justification. When we say water for every household by 2020, by 2030, a middle-income country, where at least the basic necessity for life is water, and suddenly that disappears off the radar, I think is a serious, serious disappointment. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the chair and this budget committee. Those of us who were in the last parliament, we know that that budget committee never consulted the other members. They just brought the budget on the floor of this house, and it was like it was being forced down our throats. But I think this particular committee, they have done due diligence, and the restriction caused by the resource envelope could be a limitation on their side. But as much as possible, they have tried to consult. Mr. Speaker, within the budget, I think what is reassuring is they have managed to look at water, roads, and social amenities in the area of health and education. I think that in itself really is reassuring, and I hope in subsequent budget in coming years, we should look at those areas that really touches on our people. Mr. Speaker, in the area of health, I think one thing that is coming to light is the universal health care. It is also in the Big Four that the President considers it as his legacy project. And also, where we come from, the major concern today is health, where because of lack of facilities in most of the outlying areas, people are forced to go to the big hospitals in the major cities. I think that in itself is bringing a lot of economic hardship to the poor, and that they are not able to access health care. And that is what I think the budget committee should look at from almost top down. Mr. Speaker, in the areas that we represent as a committee for defense, looking at this budget, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, one of the major docket is trade. If you are going to give them only 81 million to do trade symposium or trade facilitation, I think that is inadequate, it is unacceptable. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. 5 minutes actually is a very short time. Thank you.
Honorable Atandi Onunga, Alego Usonga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to make a contribution on this motion. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that this is the very first time that I've felt that this National Assembly is indeed a budget-making body, because of the way the committee has done its mandate in capturing the budget in a way that really makes a lot of sense. But, Mr. Speaker, we are aware that the purpose of the budget is basically for the government to be able to implement its development agenda. And, Mr. Speaker, the budgets must ensure that it complies with fiscal discipline in the manner that, as a country, we are only able to budget for what we can fund. From the estimates, Mr. Speaker, the question that I wanted to ask this House is, how is this budget going to be financed? Because for me, that is the most fundamental question. 39% of this budget would be funded through domestic and foreign borrowings. Mr. Speaker, this is an area that, for me, is very critical, because what we are saying in short is that there's a mismatch between the projected revenues and the projected expenditures. And Mr. Speaker, domestic debts, basically short-term T-bills, is going to constitute the largest source of local borrowings. And of course, in terms of foreign borrowings, we are going to rely on concessional loans or probably the Eurobonds. And Mr. Speaker, you are aware that Kenyans are concerned about the growth, the ballooning level of our public. Mr. Speaker, that the proposals that have been contained in that bill, because I sit in the Finance Committee, is really going to help us sort this deficit. And so, Mr. Speaker, I am concerned that this House must be very, very careful. They must be very critical in the way they are going to look at how this budget is going to be funded. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that concerns me is the fact that in this financial year
of making or budgeting the country's expenditure, it is actually the only institution mandated to do those roles. But, Mr. Speaker, every country that grows, and in any country, directed economic growth is very important. And I'm very happy, Mr. Speaker, that the Jubilee government, led by our president, we have seen our path in terms of where we are as a country. And in this over 3 trillion budget, Mr. Speaker, we have specific areas that we are targeting, namely, of course, the Big Four agendas, study in supporting our farmers, being on the supply side of the food chain, and also, Mr. Speaker, affordable housing, so that we can give dignity to the people and the residents of this country. But, Mr. Speaker, I have to say that there is a fallacy that is almost true, a fallacy that we peddle every time we are making budget and every time we are allocating resources in this country. And this is a fallacy of marginalization. There is a fallacy that the closer we are to Nairobi, the more developed we are. And therefore, even on the equalization fund, Mr. Speaker, we tend to see that the far-flung areas, that the farthest from Nairobi, however rich they are, they are considered to be worse off than especially us from Murang'a and the neighboring counties that are like Moya. Even my friend here is reminding me, and even Kajiado of Turukana, for example. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I am sure this is a fallacy that we are going to deal with in future, so that we can look at the voters of this country and the taxpayers as people, not more as kilometers. And by saying this, Mr. Speaker, I'm also basing on the CDF allocation, because I come from a constituency called Kiharu, where I represent, where we have over 120,000 registered voters. But, Mr. Speaker, we are given the same amount of money in terms of CDF as so many other constituencies which have much lesser population. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I am sure these kind of inequalities and this kind of skewed allocation of resources will be dealt with in future, so that even the large constituencies and the large areas that are considered as rich can also be included in the equalization fund. Mr. Speaker, many economists always advocate for a lean government, because a lean government gives birth to a big country. Where we have a lean government, where we have as few entities as possible controlled by the government, we have fewer areas where public money can be siphoned. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is my opinion that we'll continue making some of these many government entities that we fund through the budget consolidate, so that we can have few government institutions and therefore fewer money that goes into recurrent so that we can free as much resources to go into development and real development expenditure in this country. But, Mr. Speaker, I have to say, because I can see my time is almost over, I am very pleased by the additionals that I've seen in the report, 3.8 billion going to CDF. I'm very pleased by the 1 billion going to the last mile, 8.7 billion going to the damaged infrastructure occasioned by the rains that we are receiving. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, because the county I come from is one of the biggest victims of the heavy rains that we are receiving. And therefore, I'm sure the 8 billion.
Your time is over, Honorable. Well, I can confirm to you beyond doubt that there were 5 minutes. Okay, so it is your word against the speakers, and of course you lose. So let me give Honorable Gladys Wanga Nyasuna. Now, but as I give her that opportunity, let me recognize in the speakers gallery students from Upper Hill School, Nairobi. Proceed, Honorable Gladys.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity to contribute to this budget report. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate the Budget Committee for taking their role very, very seriously in terms of engaging with Parliament as far as budget making is concerned. Mr. Speaker, in past budgets we have seen that when the budget comes from the executive, very little is made in terms of changes to the budget by Parliament. But I think this time we have seen a lot of reallocations done by the Budget Committee, domiciling the power of budget making into Parliament and realizing that the power to make budget is truly in Parliament. So I'd really like to thank the committee, Mr. Speaker. Having said that, I'd like to go directly to Mr. Speaker. The youth of this country, the youth unemployment in this country remains a major, major problem. And this is why when resources were directed towards the National Youth Service and other youth programs, it was really exciting to see how we could turn around the matter of our youth and the 5-point plan that was done. But this has turned into a disaster, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the decision to reduce money from the National Youth Service is truly a prudent decision. But having said that, when the money was reduced from the Labour Committee, which I sit on, from the National Youth Service, the intention was not to make the youth of this country lose that money. The intention was to reduce the money from the National Youth Service, but not punish the youth, to direct this money towards youth programs, other youth programs, Mr. Speaker. But what I'd like to fault the Budget Committee on is having taken the money away from the National Youth Service and having seen recommendations from the Labour and Social Welfare Committee recommending where else to take this money, the Budget Committee went ahead and took the money from the National Youth Service, but took it instead to other projects such as infrastructure and so on, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, taking money from youth to infrastructure is not right. We have to invest in development of our people. And taking money from NYS is good, but don't take money from NYS and not take it. What the Labour Committee had recommended was to take money from the National Youth Service, but take it to the youth through the Youth Enterprise Fund, through reach young women through the Women Enterprise Fund, reach our young people through the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, Mr. Speaker. But what happened ultimately was that the money was taken away, but has not really been seen. Mr. Speaker, the reason that committees are engaged in budget making at the end of the day is so that the committees interact directly with the departments, and recommendations that committees make, Mr. Speaker, should be taken as seriously as possible. In the case of the Labour Committee, Mr. Speaker, 90% of the recommendations that the Labour Committee made to the Budget Committee was all taken out, and the Budget Committee went ahead and just did this as far as, in the way that they only knew how. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to register that, but I'd really still like to say that it is a good thing that the National Safety Net Program has an additional 100 million to operationalize 290 social assistance committees. What the committee had, what the Labour Committee had recommended was to put 290 million, 1 million for each constituency towards operationalization of the constituency social development committees. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be 5 minutes since I started talking. But this reduction to 100 million is something, because we had committees on the ground to help in selecting the elderly, but these committees have never been facilitated. So I'm glad that at least something has gone towards that facilitation. Mr. Speaker, the marginal increase in the National Government Affirmative Action Fund is appreciated, but we were really hoping that this could actually be a little more, so that you have a fund that can actually do something, instead of having a fund that is too minimal to make any impact. Mr. Speaker, we know that there could be politics around that, but Mr. Speaker, we hope that women representatives can also get the same treatment as members of this very dignified National Assembly. And any other, level.
You are completely out of order, Honorable Gladys. Now, I will give Honorable Lesuda, member for Samburu West. And members should also be informed that there is a watch on both sides of the wall, so you can be able to check and confirm, so that you don't enjoy your contribution until you forget that the time is over. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I hope that was your 1 minute that you took from me. But thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. And Mr. Speaker, having sat through this budget-making process, I must commend the Budget Committee and also the Parliamentary Office, the Budget Parliamentary Office, for the input and the work that they put for us to ensure to have these estimates tabled on time. Mr. Speaker, one of the issues that I really wanted to speak about is on the issue of public participation, which we adequately participated in. We went to 12 counties across the country, Mr. Speaker, and it was very important for us to actually take in the views of the members of public as we make the budget as a parliament. Mr. Speaker, it is important that we take their views, and one of the things that we realized in a county like Mombasa, when we visited the Coast Hospital, you would not even tell that it is a public institution. And it is very important for us as a country, and also even as we do our oversight role, to look at how we use these monies once they are appropriated, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that public institutions, or the institutions that counties, and even those that are directly under us through NGCDF, through NGAF, we actually use the resources that are located to us in a prudent manner, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, it is important for us to realize as a country, and especially even as politicians who sit in this house, what we realized and what was discussed is that with a handshake, and also with the temperatures having gone down in this country, Mr. Speaker, it is foreseen that our economy will rise. It is foreseen that by the time we come back for the supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker, we will have raised even more taxes. And so it is important that we also go slow, at least for the next 2 years, in matters politics, in matters succession politics, we reduce it and we continue as we are doing right now, so that we can continue to grow as a country and we can raise more resources so that we can fund our budget adequately, Mr. Speaker. There is one other issue that we realized, that even that there are projects which we always allocate money for, but we do not complete them. Once we start the budget-making process, we are starting new projects. Instead, Mr. Speaker, of finalizing our stalled projects, dealing with our pending bills, Mr. Speaker, and one of the cases is actually in my constituency. In the last year, there was money which was allocated for for university. Samburu County has no university. And so Laikipia Campus Maralal University was allocated 83 million for a start. But during the supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker, it was taken away. And so it is also important that during the supplementary budget, we do not take away money for development, Mr. Speaker, we have also captured it in this report that, Mr. Speaker, money for development should not be cut. Let us cut money on recurrent expenditure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Honorable Wanjira Wangari. Oh, she's from the other side.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry,
Speaker.
Honorable members to my left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I also rise to support this report by the Committee for Budget. I know they put a lot of hours to be able to come up with it. And also with our specific committee, Mr. Speaker, it was really a working recess. And our input, some has been taken, some has not been taken. But generally, Mr. Speaker, I want to support the issue of public participation. I agree with the members and the committee that it should actually be done in between, not just once, so that it can have meaningful contribution, so that whatever it said at the public participation, Mr. Speaker, can be included. Mr. Speaker, I also want to note that with the handshake, it is actually expected that revenue collection will actually get better. But I want to delve into a few issues, Mr. Speaker. One, I want to note the issue of the reduction of the NYS budget and NYS allocation, Mr. Speaker. And as a constituency that hosts NYS, Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm that the constituent colleges of NYS, like in my place, Mr. Speaker, there are about 16,000 young women and young men inside that college that are being fed through credit, Mr. Speaker. The issue of the 9 billion we only hear in Nairobi, we must not only get to the reduction, Mr. Speaker, and get authority to incur expenditure. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the Budget Committee on the issue of infrastructure and road repairs. As of course, this rain, Mr. Speaker, has only been seen maybe in the 1960s. Rain that, like it's pounding this today, Mr. Speaker. The destruction in terms of infrastructure, whether it is the sewer systems, whether it is the roads, Mr. Speaker, I think every constituency and every member of this House can attest that the destruction in terms of roads is massive. I only hope, Mr. Speaker, that the sharing of this money to develop infrastructure and repair our roads will be done accordingly and will be done fairly, so that each constituency gets their share of the infrastructure development. Mr. Speaker, I also want to touch on the issue of health. Take off the pressure from Kenyatta National Hospital and from Moi Training and Referral Hospital in Eldoret that we do not have to take ailments of malaria, ailments of pneumonia to Kenyatta. We do not have to take issues of ARVs to Kenyatta. We do not have to take the issues of family planning to Kenyatta and to Moi referral, Mr. Speaker.
What is it, Honorable Member for Kisumu Town? Is it east or west? North? Central? Okay. What is it?
My mic, Mr. Speaker. Who is this member who goes by the name Chichopevu?
Central. You know, you are known for making it to high places using different antiques. I believe this is one of your antiques of remaining here. So, and therefore, I will not punish you for making a very strong effort to maintain your position in the House. So let's proceed and wind up. I think it should be about a half a minute for you, Honorable Member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me from Honorable Uda. And I want to continue, Mr. Speaker, and say that the other issue I've noted on this budget is the increase in the last mile. Most people have been applying for electricity connections to households, and I know this Jubilee government is very keen to ensure that villages are lit, institutions have electricity. This is also very commendable, Mr. Speaker. The other issue is the budget to the Ministry of Land. Mr. Speaker, I hope that this money that has been given to Ministry of Land will be used appropriately to ensure that almost every constituency gets a registration office. Mr. Speaker, even if we are a new constituency as Gilgil, we have people to travel from Kongasis, and you know how far that is. Go to Naivasha if you have an issue on land. It is about time that every constituency gets a registry so that these services can be
taken closer to the people, and including the civil registration services, like I've spoken before in this house, that if you need a birth certificate, you have in each constituency, you can be able to access. And with those many remarks, I support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Oduol Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like, Mr. Speaker, to support and commend the committee. As I start, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also acknowledge indeed that as we talk about social protection systems and social intervention, which indeed are intended to cushion those who are vulnerable in society, it would be good, Mr. Speaker, that we then have a plan that is holistic and do not get to stop at pilot stage. Mr. Speaker, as we look at the Universal Healthcare Program, which we see is going to be piloted in 12 counties, one of which is Kisumu, it would be useful for us to be aware and to learn from existing programs such as the Orphans and Vulnerable Children Program, the elderly, persons with disability, which up to date, Mr. Speaker, are still really at the pilot stage. So it would be useful in terms of our plans and how it is that we make budgetary projections to be much more focused and deliberate so that this would be holistically done. Mr. Speaker, once again, as we commend indeed that we are going to find that counties will receive additional 46 billion more than they did in the past, it would be useful to look at the delays in releasing cash to the counties. Most of the counties, Mr. Speaker, as a result of these delays, have been forced not only to rely heavily on revenue collections, but in other cases they have lacked funds for major important tasks, which include salary, which include areas that deal with health. Mr. Speaker, my own county, Siaya, is one case in point where we would find that some staff have not received their salaries even for February. Mr. Speaker, we also note and commend that when we look at the report of the committee, we can see that during the public participation, there was specific mention of the need to have extension services. As we look at the Big Four agenda, particularly the issue of food security, Mr. Speaker, it would be useful for us to recognize that we need to ensure that we have necessary veterinary and agricultural agricultural production extension services so that we would have that semi-arid and pastoral areas which currently do not seem to be able to produce sufficient food, and veterinary-related production and outputs would be able to do that. I want to conclude, Mr. Speaker, by thanking the committee, but to also emphasize that when we look at the debt level, we want to commend that we are reducing the debt level from 57% to 50%, and therefore looking at the external debt, trying to bring it down. But Mr. Speaker, we need to be much more alert with the high level of corruption and need to ensure that we have much more clearly defined accountability mechanisms that would allow particularly committees and the National Assembly at large to be the one that would do the necessary monitoring and evaluation. So I thank, Mr. Speaker, the committee, and I would also like, in the interest of the handshake, because, Mr. Speaker, there is in this House, there are 2 nominees, 001, Mr. Speaker. I have noted that we tend to assume that we only have 1 nominee, 001. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor, as I thank my party, the ODM, to also be nominee 001. And I want to commend the handshake because it has made this clear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, let's have Honorable Member for Seme. And I wanted to demonstrate something, Honorable Member for Seme, that even if you came here, the Speaker would still have the leeway to make a decision one way or the other. And of course, you are ahead in the list, but I decided to give a Honorable Oduol.
Well, I don't believe that reason, Mr. Speaker. But
if you don't believe it, I might actually deny you the opportunity so that you can believe it. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, that would amount to abuse of office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for, for giving me this opportunity. Let me start by thanking the Budget Committee and their chair. I think they have done a good job. But, Mr. Speaker, I'll only confine myself to the process because I think it's important. Mr. Speaker, I've always said in this House that when we do the division of revenue bill, as we had done earlier, now we are dealing with the national government account, we do not know what the needs of the county governments are. So we tend to just go by the 15% and the Commission of Revenue recommendments. But something has happened. The sector hearing, Mr. Speaker, has indicated that there is actually need to have those that information about the country needs on top of what is provided for legally. The sector hearing that was done, Mr. Speaker, they found that there are many areas of need in county government. For example, they found that there are many hospitals in Nairobi that are actually not functioning. They found that the equipment in a hospital in Pokot is not being used because they have no electricity. They found that there are a lot of poor roads, and they proceeded, Mr. Speaker, to provide funds for this. If you look at this, Mr. Speaker, these are county government functions. We have just done the division of revenue, but again we are taking over these functions and providing money. It does indicate that it was important that we should have known these things before and taken into consideration when we were doing the division of revenue bill. I think that's an important. Mr. Speaker, they have also recommended that they'll do the amendment of the PFM so that the sector hearings come early, so that it goes into the budget. The recommendation of the budget committee that MDAs or institutions that are involved in corruption should have their budget reduced. And they have done that for NYS. But, Mr. Speaker, there's something I would like to say. I've been in the budget committee. I think corruption has creeped into the budget process. Mr. Speaker, I say this because if I've noticed that every time you have these mega scandals, it follows very large provisions in those institutions. I don't think it is a coincidence. So, as people who, as an institution that is mandated with budget making, I think we should start to be very careful when we see very large provisions going into certain MDAs. That is something I think we should look at. And further, Mr. Speaker, after that, we should monitor those institutions. Like now, Mr. Speaker, we have put a lot of money, and I recommend that, in the areas of the 4 agenda. We must therefore be very careful and monitor those areas. You know where this meat, flies will get there. If we don't do that, the 4 agenda will turn out to be 4 pillars of corruption. Mr. Speaker, with that, I thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Honorable Member, Honorable, proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this important motion. Mr. Speaker, I commend the work of the Budget Committee, not because I'm a member of the committee, but the committee worked tirelessly in view of coming up with the best budget so far in this country. Mr. Speaker, we did a lot of consultations. Consultations at the departmental committee level and consultations with the Treasury, especially to try and find out why we have delays, especially in the release of exchequer, and therefore projects are not implemented in time. We also consulted Treasury on the budget ceilings. Mr. Speaker,
Order, Honorable
Mr.
Dr.
Speaker, I need
Mukosi.
protection. There is a lot of...
Order, and I have heard you, and I will act accordingly. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there was no single reduction or allocation that we did without negotiation. They were all negotiated, and the chairs of the various committees did give us the reason why they thought it was necessary to reallocate. And even where we made proposals as a committee, Mr. Speaker, it was very well discussed with the committee chairs, the departmental committee chairs, and agreed upon. The committee also, Mr. Speaker, looked at the focus of the budget itself, the entire allocation in view of Kenya and the way the Kenyans will look at it. We looked at the local level needs, and we looked at the priorities of the people, especially when we went for the public participation. Mr. Speaker, there are a few key highlights I would like to bring up from this budget process or from the report as it is from the chairman. One of the things is the balance between the budget, the recurrent expenditure and the development expenditure. It is possible that right now, Kenya may be doing a lot more putting a lot more money in recurrent expenditure than development expenditure. But Mr. Speaker, I want to assure this House that this is reducing, and it is also very much dependent on the sector, on the sector. Some sectors are putting a lot more money in development than in recurrent. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that is also was important to note is the huge reallocations that we did in respect of money that could be better used in other areas other than being misused. Mr. Speaker, we even got money from Treasury, around 4.37 billion, and reallocated, which is something that has never happened in this country before, and we did negotiate with the Treasury on this particular issue, and therefore the Budget Committee brought a good report. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that we also looked at is a focus on the priorities of the people and the Big Four agenda, which has also been supported in this particular budget. Mr. Speaker, the other issues that are important that I may wish to highlight is a variety of the government initiatives that have been taken, that have been going on, and the need for us to verify the need to have these facilities, especially the facilities on lease. We realize that in some counties they have been very effectively utilized, and I want to mention the Kirinyaga County, where I did the public participation and found a hospital that is improving from level 5 to something even better. A hospital that we can say in the region is a referral hospital, which is clean and effectively working, and the equipment is very well working. It's highly comparable to the Mombasa case, which we can say in the country today. We have even a renal unit that is basically performing very well. Mr. Speaker, the people's proposals were brought from not only the 12 counties that we visited, but they also came from other counties which are neighboring. And we considered all these proposals and agreeing that in future we shall be having these proposals carry the day in terms of what is supposed to be funded in the future. Mr. Speaker, I find the budget fairly balanced, and I support this motion in that respect. Mr. Speaker, also important to note is the fact that the various, if you look at different sectors, they intend internal reallocation. They considered what needs to be moved from from one vote to the other vote. And this we agreed upon based on the priorities that they gave us and the reasons why they thought it was necessary to do the allocation. Mr. Speaker, with those very few remarks, I do support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I stand in support of this report, I wish the Constitution, and I wish to affirm that most of the issues they submitted are real issues affecting the common mwananchi at the grassroots level. Mr. Speaker, from the submissions made by Kirinyaga residents, I want to affirm that there is a critical need to improve the current state of the roads in the country, and I would recommend that the money allocated towards rehabilitation of various roads and in various constituencies be adapted out of the urgent need of the residents. But moving forward, we wish to see more money being allocated towards tarmacking various roads into bitumen standards. Kirinyaga residents equally welcome the move to improve the basic infrastructure in public schools in the counties, and in the allocation of money into the move has really been welcomed in Kirinyaga County. Mr. Speaker, on the side of agriculture, I wish to note that among the big drivers of the economy, any recommendation made in the House should not be in any way affect the projects related to this sector. In fact, I wouldn't find any substantive reason to guarantee reduction of money allocated towards the constructions of dams in various counties and agro-processing industries like tomato, French beans, among other processing plants that have been allocated money, like fish in Migori and honey processing plants in West Pokot. Mr. Speaker, now that also we are working in line with the budget, with the Big Four, I also wish to commend the fact that the government has moved forward to also establish and also allocate money to the industrial parks.
Mr. Speaker, in reference to the policy recommendations in this report on fertilizer, we wish that also there would be subsidies for fertilizers in the coffee sector. We also appreciate the fact that there was money that was also put in for the coffee growing counties. Lastly, but not the least, being among the 47 elected women representatives, I wish to really say that we appreciate the 145 million that was allocated to us. But realizing that, Mr. Speaker, that most of these women, the money that we have, we use to touch the lives of Kenyans. And having so little that will not be noticed amongst the money that we are spending, we wish that next time that the budget committee must take note and our colleagues realize that we are part.
The absence of teachers results in indirect costs to the households. The unending and unsolved ever-rising cost of education, which is reflected in fees in boarding schools, of course, directly arises from inadequate teachers. And we believe with the good work that the Budget Committee has done, the process of public consultation, and this is one such forum, it is possible that this House can affirmatively avail 10 billion shillings to guarantee recruitment of more teachers. Mr. Speaker, there are reasonable sources of financing, and in this nation, the whole indicators that tax evasion is very high, that rises into billions. The UN puts it at 37 billion. And of course, with corruption, those two vices, if they're dealt with, then definitely this nation can even avail.
I do not know why the member for Eldama Ravine is pointing this direction menacingly. Well, and you have already stood. I do not know. Are you on a point of order? But anyway, let me give another member first. What is your point of order, Honorable Lesonet?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to put a question to the member who has just finished speaking.
To put a question?
I mean, on a point of order to him, because I've heard him lamenting about a shortage of teachers, 140,000. Well, Mr. Speaker, when we are in this house, this law-making house, this house that makes policy, I expected to hear him, especially being an expert in teacher and teacher management, to tell us what is the solution to this problem of 140,000 shortage of teachers, because it cannot be just as simple as allocating money. Resources are always in short supply. There cannot be available resources to do 140,000.
You see,
I wanted him, Mr. Speaker, to even tell us about the interns. Why?
You wanted Honorable Sosion to reply to that. Unfortunately, he has no more time to reply, so you will wait for another opportunity that will be given that he can maybe comment on it. So I think you have made your point, so we will proceed to the... What is it again? Why are members standing up and down? I know the cards are not working, but yours definitely, Honorable Pukose, is working, so I'm not giving you the opportunity, but I can confirm, I can see you are about number 3 here or something. So you are not top on the list by any chance. So you will have to wait patiently as other members contribute. So now let me give the one top on the list here, that is Honorable Murungi Kadhuri, member for South Imenti. Not in the House. Then we go to Honorable Hillary Kosgei, Kipkelion West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the budget report and recommendations, and to join other members in lauding the budget committee for cutting wasteful money from wasteful spending departments like the NYS, and to further say that they should have reallocated those funds to the needs of the teachers that the Honorable Sosion is talking about. Mr. Speaker, even as the government insists on 100% transition, the government has put more effort on infrastructural development and left the issue of teachers behind. in this country, Mr. Speaker, and especially from the constituencies where we come from, we have day schools with a total number of over 300 students still having 2 teachers from the Teacher Service Commission and are expected to compete with students from well-established institutions in this republic. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support that in future or in this budget, we still have a leeway to channel more resources towards the employing of more teachers. More than that, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the recommendations of the Budget Committee, especially on the subsidized fertilizer. For a long time, coffee farmers have been left behind in this country, and the recommendation by the Budget Committee that 1 billion shillings be ring-fenced from the fertilizer subsidy to coffee farmers is a welcome move, especially to support farmers who come from coffee-growing regions like my constituency in Kipkeli, from the tourism recovery program and putting the same money towards the Ushanga Kenya initiative. I think, Mr. Speaker, we should have added more money towards the, Madam Speaker, we should have added more money towards the development and further promotion of tourism activities in this country. And a second recommendation that I support, Mr. Speaker, is on the water sector. And it is in the Committee of Parliament where I sit. We see that the GOK has left a lot of water programs to donors. And donors easily fund programs in towns where the returns on investment is easy, and thereby leaving the rural constituencies unattended to. And the Budget Committee's proposal to, give 200 million shillings to the Northern Water Service Board is a welcome move, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, because that is an area that is largely ignored, and they have the needs of water like any other people in the Republic of Kenya. So, Madam Speaker, the water issue and the water question must follow in the energy sector where we have the last mile. We should encourage and give resources to the Ministry of Water and Sanitation to start last mile provision of water to the rural communities of this country so that we can easily achieve the agenda on food security. And on those few remarks, I beg to support.
The Honorable Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to state that this is the first budget that was prepared after the 2017 general election. And Madam Speaker, on the onset, I want to thank the Budget and Appropriation Committee members. I want to thank the Budget Office of the National Assembly, and above all, the National Treasury for making sure that they deliver to this House a budget estimate within the timelines given by the Constitution and the PFM Act 2012. Madam Speaker, I am very, very grateful for the new procedure that we have introduced to this House in regard to the consideration of the budget estimates. And this was given an opportunity to the budget estimates to be dealt with in a more participatory manner, where the budget committee went round 11 counties, listened to the views of Kenya, and again, through the various departmental committee, the people representative had an opportunity to deal with the budget as provided for by the National Treasury. Madam Speaker, this new process that the Constitution has provided in Chapter 12 of the 2010 Constitution has given the National Assembly the exclusive right to consider, to scrutinize on behalf of the people of Kenya. And of course, when you look at the PFM Act, Section 38 and 39, this is powers given to this House. And Madam Speaker, as I listened to members yesterday, I really want the chair of the Budget Affairs Committee to consider the issues raised by Honorable Wafula Wamunyinyi, Honorable Chris Wamalwa, regarding a specific road in their county, issues, requests made by the women representative, Madam Speaker, regarding the special fund for women. Madam Speaker, the 47 women members of parliament are our sisters. They are our colleagues. We get 2.5% of the national revenue as CDF. I am sure when we go to the committee of the whole house or the committee of supply on Tuesday, the budget chair will be magnanimous that we can't be the house that makes the budget, and we can't be at the same time a house that denies our colleagues the little resources that they want. So, Madam Speaker, I really want the chair to listen to the various requests in their speech made by the county women representative in as far as their fund is concerned. And of course, lastly, there was a concern raised by Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi regarding the reallocation of funds related to ongoing projects in the estimate. Madam Speaker, we must finish projects. The Minister for National Treasury cannot have the leeway that he leaves projects pending in every county and in every constituency, and they all end up becoming white elephants. Madam Speaker, for a budget to be very credible, it must be technically sound. It must be faithful to the legal provisions, both in the Constitution, the PFM Act, and the standing orders. And above all, that budget must be consultative and that has a politically anchored mechanism to decide on and fund the priorities that the people of Kenya need. And Madam Speaker, the budget process in Kenya has been reformed over a period of time. And I want to say that I'm a very proud member of parliament because different countries are now benchmarking on our system since 2010 constitution, because it is the people who own, through their representative, the budget-making process. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to know that the estimates of expenditure and revenue for the financial year 2018-2019 have adhered to various elements of the budget as contained in the various statutes. These elements, Madam Speaker, relates to the timelines and the comprehensiveness that a budget must deserve. Madam Speaker, on the financing proposals, the estimates of revenue table in the House gave anticipated deficit for this financial year, for the coming financial year, and both the medium term and the proposed source of financing, as well as the loans and the guarantees made by the national government. All these have been provided by the Cabinet Secretary to this committee. Of course, this includes the estimate of the principal interest and other charges to be paid by the national government. And in this financial year, Madam Speaker, the resolution of the House that we passed when we passed the PPS was that the limit of that deficit should not be more than 6% for the 2018-2019. And I'm sure the National Treasury have confirmed to the committee and to the House that they will reduce that deficit to a lesser figure. Madam Speaker, the growth of our economy has been resilient and broad-based, but the GDP growth in 2017, Madam Speaker, slowed down to 4.9% from the 5.9% of 2016. And of course, this is occasioned by a number of factors: the drought, the weak credit growth that we found ourselves in at the financial sector, of course, the pickups in the oil prices globally, and of course, finally, the prolonged electioneering period of 2017. What are our projections, Madam Speaker? This economy, according to the National Treasury figures, this economy is projected to grow or to recover to 5.9% in 2018-2019 and around 7% over the medium-term financing. Madam Speaker, yesterday the chairs of the various committees had an opportunity to contribute and to listen, after listening to their various stakeholders. But Madam Speaker, I watched my colleagues, all of them were reading, script written for them by the budget office and their clerks. It's good for members to internalize what they're being given by the people. That it's against the standing orders, Madam Speaker. I only saw the chair of finance, Honorable Limo, who contributed without referring to. Notes are meant for reference, Madam Speaker. It's against the standing orders for one to stand and read notes. So I think in the next financial year, we expect members to read whatever that is given to them by their committee technical team and to condense into a summary and come and give the House and give a critique. And Madam Speaker, the other thing I really want to urge chairs is that you are supposed to oversight the executive. Please do not come and speak for the executive. We need to support the executive where they comply with the law. But we should not just support the executive where we feel they are violating. Madam Speaker, and that is why I want to urge committees of this House and the House in general. We are at the far forefront in the fight against corruption. If we make sure each and every public officer, the amount of money we appropriate, we follow to the letter. And Madam Speaker, I think the House must change its way of doing things. After we approve this budget, the departmental committees must submit a quarterly report of their departments in terms of the implementation and monitoring of those monies. Mr. Speaker, we cannot wait for one budget to the other budget. So if it is the department, if it is the Committee of National Security, every 3 months, over the holiday between the two speakers. Madam Speaker, there is nothing unusual between the two houses. It is, for example, the budget-making process is an exclusive powers given to the National Assembly in Chapter 12 of the Constitution and in the PFM Act, Section 38 and 39. And Madam Speaker, the same Constitution is very clear in black and white that any money bill must originate from the National Assembly. And Madam Speaker, myself and Honorable Bandi, we will make sure we will defend the Constitution. Yes, that this is a money-related bill, then that bill ought not to have originated in the Senate. I think the 12th Parliament must live to the fidelity of the Constitution. Madam Speaker, 11th Parliament, we were testing the systems. But this time, we know our roles, and our roles are defined well in the Constitution. It is the same senators, Madam Speaker, in the 10th Parliament, who some of them today are senators, who are governors, who sat in the Constitution-making Committee of the 10th Parliament. Honorable Kiraitu Murungi, Honorable Anyang' Nyong, Honorable Wetangula, Honorable Orengo, name them. They sat in the committee, and they decided to give themselves the type of Senate that Kenya needs. And there's a world of difference between the Senate in the US and the Senate of Kenya. In other jurisdictions, the Senate is a referral chamber. It's a vetting chamber. But for us, our Senate is only to protect and defend the county governments. So, Madam Speaker, this House must seize the moment that you have a powers in budget-making process given to you by the Constitution, by the standing orders, and by the PFM Act. Let us make sure that this budget is followed to where it will go after we appropriate, to every village, and we find out and we make a report to the House every 3 months that the amount of money which was supposed to go to a road in Taveta, that road is 50% complete. We should not just sit back here. Members of Parliament, committees, Madam Speaker, must go to the rural areas. The idea of going to Mombasa over the weekend should be a thing of the past. Members, committees must go to Suba, they must go to Garissa, they must go to Mombasa, they must go to Gem and see the money that we have appropriated. That is the only way we can make, and they can go to Kitale. But Madam Speaker, we must reduce the traffic going to Mombasa. We must reduce that traffic, and we must divert that traffic to the villages, to the counties, to the constituencies of the Republic of Kenya. I beg to support and thank Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. I told him, now you have graduated. in the next parliament, he is qualified to be either the leader of majority or the leader of minority.
Okay, members, the subsequent speakers should know that the time taken by the majority leader is given by order of the standing orders. So you should not think that the timing has changed. You still have your 5 minutes. The 15 minutes is just a preserve of the leader of majority and leader of minority. I'll give a chance to the member representing special interests of persons with disability, Honorable Denita Gatti.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Allow me to really thank the Budget Committee, and I want to say that really this is a budget that is really inclusive. Madam Speaker, I also want to take this opportunity to just say from the onset that I'm happy that the Budget Committee visited my county. Madam Speaker, you are aware that I represent persons with disability. And Madam Speaker, you are also aware that I'm the immediate women representative for the county of Migori. Madam Speaker, and I was very happy to see the Budget Committee in my county, Madam Speaker, at least looking at the issues that really we looked at in the last parliament. Madam Speaker, the issue of education. And I'm happy, Madam Speaker, that my people came out to give their views, Madam Speaker. The people of Migori basically sat down and they presented their views, Madam Speaker, and they talked the issue of education and the fact that the committee basically looked at the issue of upgrading the Migori TTC into a university. Madam Speaker, that is a good observation. And I really must thank the chair and the various stakeholders that really visited my county. Madam Speaker, I want to pick up from where the leader of majority has just mentioned, Madam Speaker. The issue of budget making, Madam Speaker, should not stop with us. The issue of budget making should be an issue, Madam Speaker, that is regular. So that, Madam Speaker, if the budget committee goes to Kilifi, the budget committee needs to go into rural areas of Olenguruone, Madam Speaker. They need to go to Kuria. They need to go everywhere, Madam Speaker, and especially these areas that basically bring in the issues of equalization. Madam Speaker, we have constituencies, Madam Speaker, in our counties that are basically not as good, as up to date as the way in which counties are actually ranked and subsequently given their equalization fund, Madam Speaker. So I am happy that we are looking at now the issues that are very pertinent to our people. Madam Speaker, as a representative of persons that live with disability, Madam Speaker, I wish to say from this onset, Madam Speaker, that I will also be very keen, even as we upgrade and touch base and put together these institutions, Madam Speaker, like the TTC in my county that is going to be upgraded into a university, Migori University. Madam Speaker, I'll be very keen to look at how these structures that are put in place, Madam Speaker, are accessible to my constituents. Madam Speaker, we have persons living with disability who belong to various constituencies in this house, Madam Speaker. And therefore, even as we look at upgrading the structures like the TTC and the colleges, Madam Speaker, we want to ensure that we also promote the issue of inclusive education for persons that live with disability in those counties and constituencies. So it is very important, Madam Speaker, that even as we upgrade and allocate money to support these institutions, Madam Speaker, we also need to know that persons that live with disability in those constituencies and in those counties, Madam Speaker, access education. Our various education institutions have to be extremely accessible to our people, so that, Madam Speaker, our people are not transported from Migori, for instance, going all the way to Thika to look for education simply because they have a wheelchair or because they use assistive devices. So, Madam Speaker, I am very happy, and Madam Speaker, allow me to basically touch base on the issue of NYS. Madam Speaker, the budget for NYS has been reduced. And Madam Speaker, it has been reduced simply because of some gluttonous people, gluttonous Kenyans, Madam Speaker, who have made it impossible for our young people to access the services. Madam Speaker, the young people are suffering through this reduction of NYS simply because of some rich so-to-do and people who masquerade as young people, Madam Speaker. They have eaten into NYS. That is why we are reducing the budget of NYS. Madam Speaker, I am not happy. And I'm sure, Madam Speaker, our young people are not happy because their budget has been reduced.
Madam Speaker, this budget should have been allocated into some other fund that basically go down and touch our people in our constituencies and our people, our young people in our county. So I want to urge the budget committee, Madam Speaker, that we look at not only cutting and reducing the budget for NYS, how then can we redirect this money, Madam Speaker, so that our young people still can access these funds, Madam Speaker, and through the youth fund or other funds that basically look at the issue of youth, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Member for Kisumu Central. I understand this to be your maiden speech.
No, I've spoken before. I've been intervening when Duale is consulting loudly. When Honorable Duale is consulting
I can't
loudly.
get you, Honorable Lauda. Could you clarify whether this is your maiden speech?
Not really. I don't know.
I know you did a point of order, but...
Yeah, I made a point of order, yes.
But that
yes.
cannot be your maiden speech.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Madam Speaker, 1 minute is already taken, so you'll give me 6 minutes. First of all, Madam Speaker, I want to say that I'm very delighted, and I want to thank the Budget Committee, led by their chairman, for the good work that they have done. They have at least tried to consult widely and involve this House in every process that they were undertaking. Madam Speaker, I also cannot forget thanking the various committees for working overtime, especially during recess, to make sure that this process comes out as it is today. But Madam Speaker, having said that, I cannot forget to take cognizance and observe one thing in this budget going forward. Madam Speaker, for the backbone of any growing economy is actually agriculture. And Madam Speaker, you cannot purport to be a growing economy if you are not paying a lot of attention when it comes to agriculture. For example, currently, I think even in the current budget, or rather the past budgets, agriculture normally is given slightly more than, slightly 2% or more than 2%, around there. But you see, we are part of the Maputo Declaration. Actually, agriculture should be receiving 10% of the entire, or rather the entire budget as it is. So, Madam Speaker, I want to urge this House that as we go forward, and now I can talk of the Big Four agenda confidently, because I am an opposition in government, or rather government is opposition, the way it is, and that is why I'm a bit soft when it comes to Hon Adan Duale. Madam Speaker, let this House know that in the coming budgets, or rather in any other budget preparation going forward, if at all our Chair Kimani Ichung'wah will still be there, I pray he'll still be there, and will lead another one, let us be serious when it comes to the matters agriculture. Let us give agriculture more money. Even as we give infrastructure and defense, as I've seen, moving money from one area to internal security and defense, let us also move money to give to agriculture as a department. I want to concur with everybody here that as a country, we need to work as a team, and actually, for now and any time going forward, I know handshake will be there. I know there are prophets of doom when it comes to handshake, but now let them take note that actually handshake has taken off seriously, and this economy will grow definitely because of the handshake. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, having said that, in any other recurrent budget, please, any other movement of money from one department to another, let that movement go to agriculture so that you can reinforce the Big Four agenda as it is laid out by the President and the government. Thank you. And Madam Speaker, I also insist still that please let us support the handshake. Let's stay together so that the economy can grow. Thank you so much.
Member for Kajiado North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want also to contribute to
this budget making process and say entirely, if you look at this document, wholesome, it does not support the real reality on the ground. Our country, as we know, is an agricultural-based country. And if it is an agricultural-based country, and then you don't allocate resources towards that, then it means we are allocating resources in different areas. Madam Speaker, if you check the amount allocated to Department for Agriculture Research, which is about 5 billion, then you check the Department for Irrigation, you check the Department of Fishery, and also the Department of Livestock, which is agriculture in nature, then if you compare these ones to the other departments, you will find we are not really supporting the correct thing. Madam Speaker, compare those departments that I've mentioned with social protection. You will find that we are more geared towards giving than production section. Madam Speaker, that is why I tend to think we need and ought to have checked on these documents and make sure that at least it is geared towards what we want to achieve. Madam Speaker, also, if you check at this particular budget, it does not support the Vision 2030. If you critically check our vision, how resources have been geared towards this particular docket. We are talking of the big four, yet the resources were not direct towards that direction. Madam Speaker, Kenyans normally say in 1978, Madam Speaker, there is a lot of noise coming from the background. There is a lot of noise coming from the background, I can't.
Order members, kindly let the member for Kajiado North make his contribution without a lot of interference.
Thank you, Madam. I wanted that protection so that at least I can concentrate. I was saying we normally talk of, in 1978, we were at par with Singapore, we were at par with Malaysia, then after that we lost the cause. I want to tell the members what we lost. You remember during the same period, the founding father of this nation died. So it means maybe he died with that vision because he had that vision of supporting the agricultural sector, and that is why our petroleum was doing very good, our tea was doing very good, the coffee was doing very good, all the agricultural sector, including SAISO, was doing very well, and every children who came from school were easily absorbed by this sector. But today, it is happening, the opposite is happening because we are taking resources to where it does not deserve. Madam Speaker, we are talking of fighting corruption. But if you check the allocation of money, the money that has been allocated to anti-corruption body, which is about 2.8 billion, compared, and also the Auditor General, which is 5 billion. Compare this one, this is about, if you add the two, it adds up to about 7.8 billion. Compare this to the entire amount that has been allocated to intelligence, which is 31 billion. So the allocation does not correspond to what we say on the ground. If you want to fight corruption, then it means we have to allocate resources. We have to allocate more resources to the Auditor General because he's the one who controls this fund, the person who will check whether this money has been stolen. Madam Speaker, we have also to make sure that at least we spend a lot of money in planning.
Order member for Kajiado North. Honorable Lesonet, what is it? I can see you frantically trying to attract my attention.
Yes, Madam Speaker, this matter has been adequately canvassed, and I want to, and looks like the mood of the House, Madam Speaker, is that the mover may be called to respond, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have canvassed, we've talked about this matter for 2 days, Madam Speaker.
Okay, Honorable Lesonet, I heard you.
Yes.
And Honorable Millie, we can't have a point of order on top of another one. We need to dispense with the one at hand. We need to dispense Order, members. You're out of order. Order, members. Order, members. Order. Order, members. I have no authority to make any decision. The decision is upon the members. And member Honorable Lesonet has presented a motion before the House, and I'm going on to put the question on whether or not we call the mover to reply. Honorable members, you cannot refuse to make a decision. And I go ahead to put the question that the mover be called upon to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Order. Order, order, members. Mover. Honorable Millie, you can only raise a point of order against an issue which is on the floor. Yes. The issue that I have just presented to the floor is a vote. And I think we have closed that because members have called upon the mover to reply. So, Honorable Ishungwa.
Much obliged, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, let me take this opportunity to commend the House and indeed all members for the seriousness and keenness, Honorable Speaker, employed during the consideration of these 2018-2019 budget estimates. And my committee, Honorable Speaker, is greatly encouraged by the participation by all members, both during this debate and even at the committee stages, as they deliberated on the estimates during the committee stage. Madam Speaker, it is expected that this great involvement will enhance the role of this 12th Parliament and will have a long-term positive budgetary results in the budget-making process of our country. Honorable Speaker.
Order, members. There is a lot of noise happening. Order. Anyone moving out, please do so quietly. You may even want to hear the Chair of Budget and Appropriations Committee on how he's going to respond to some of the issues you have raised. So let us make our movements as silent as possible.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also wish to thank the chairs of the various departmental committees, Honorable Speaker, and leaders of delegations that led our delegations to various counties, the 12 counties that we did public participation in, and for their commitment and dedication in that process of public participation. Honorable Speaker, as we agreed in Mombasa during our retreat with the Liaison Committee under the able leadership of the chairman of the Liaison Committee, we did commit for the first time as a budget committee. We will liaise with chairs of committees and brief them after we consider all their departmental committee reports, and we did that for the first time in the history of this House. Honorable Speaker, we have listened to members contribute to this debate, and we have picked up pertinent issues. You remember yesterday the Honorable Chris Wamalwa, the Honorable Wafula Wamunyinyi raised issues on the public participation exercise in Bungoma. And as I gave notice this morning, we will consider certain amendments, especially in relation to the issues that were raised by the people of Bungoma in terms of their priorities, and to make sure that we address their concerns as a people in this year's budget. And not just that, even the issues that have been raised by the member for Kisumu Central in terms of more resources going towards agriculture. In this budget, as you notice in our report, we have committed and ring-fenced 1 billion shillings of the fertilizer subsidy to go towards our coffee farmers. And a lot of resources have been dedicated to the agricultural sector. Honorable Speaker, the public hearings have been carried out, and those are questions that have been raised on the question of public participation since the year 2012 And it is a commitment of the Budget and Appropriations Committee to continue with this practice and ensure that every county of our 47 counties is visited by the end of the life of this 12th Parliament. Honorable Speaker, the selected 12 counties were from a sampling framework which we adopted as a committee with various variables, namely geographical location and geographical dispersion as a country, marginalization, the Big Four agenda, urbanization, and current issues on development. The sampling method that we used, of course, is not discretionary, but it works towards equity at the end of it, and that's why I've committed that by the end of this current parliament, we will have visited all the 47 counties. The timing of our public hearing is also likely to change if we amend the PFM Act of 2012 and allow the activity to take place in the period between September and November of every year. And this will enhance the number of counties that we cover in each year. And more importantly, honorable members will need to appreciate that this exercise is geared towards the national budget and not the county budgets, because we did notice in the 12 counties that we visited, a lot of issues relating to county budgets were raised during the public hearing. Honorable Speaker, on project prioritization, the committee developed a benchmark that favored efficiency and timely completion of projects, primarily those that can be completed within one financial year. This gave special attention to stalled projects that can be completed.
Is your time up? Please put the chair back on to complete.
I was saying to conclude the stalled projects and have substantial impact on society. The larger projects, Honorable Speaker, will therefore be considered during through the medium-term framework, and a lot of the projects, like you had members mention, Mitihani House, the stalled Nyayo wards in Dandora, and other areas, Honorable Speaker, will be considered. Honorable Speaker, we also appreciate the huge responsibility that chairs of the various departmental committees undertook. And of course, Honorable Speaker, I'm under a lot of pressure to conclude. I want to appreciate, Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, every member, including the leaders in this House, including the leader of majority and the leader of minority, for the invaluable support during the budget process. For the first time, Honorable Speaker, this process has been very participative. And the whips of both sides of the House, both the minority and the majority, and members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Honorable Speaker, let me finally take the opportunity to thank you, all members of staff of Parliament, especially those of the Parliamentary Budget Office, our clerks who have put in invaluable work during this process from the beginning in May, and even way before that for the Parliamentary Budget Office for the tremendous work that they have put in. And allow me to give notice that I will actualize the sentiments from members as necessary amendments through the Committee of Supply, which will not lead to increase of the overall expenditures, but take care of only reallocation, Honorable Speaker. I think it's important to note that we have a fiscal deficit that we must guard against, and therefore with that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Order, members. Order. Order, members. Order, members. I confirm that we have the requisite quorum to go ahead with the question. And also just to remind members, this stage might have come to an end, but we have 6 more days within which to interact more in-depth with this budget-making process. So it is not all done. So you still have a lot of time to interact with it. And I'll go ahead to put the question that this House adopts a report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget estimates for the national government, the judiciary, and Parliament for the financial year 2018-2019, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 5th June 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 221 of the Constitution of Kenya, Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Standing Orders 235 and 239, approves the issuance of a sum of Kenya shillings 1,742 billion 291,667,908 from the Consolidated Fund to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2019 in respect of the votes as contained in the schedule, subject to any amendments in the Committee of Supply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Report of the Committee of the Whole House on the Energy Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2017. Question to be put.
Order. Order, members. I go on to put the question that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the Energy Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2017. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now call upon the mover.
Honorable Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the Energy Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2017 be now read a third time. I also request the Vice Chair of the Energy Committee, Honorable Pukose, the only surgeon in the House, to second.
Order, members. We are transacting some important business.
Yes. The rest are quacks or herbalist.
Honorable members, kindly, Honorable Leader of Minority, you cannot be the one leading the pack. You can you do the necessary? Do the necessary, Honorable Leader of Minority. And make sure
Honorable
we
Speaker,
are
I second.
constituted. Order. Order, members. The members who are shaking hands. Who is this member shaking hands? Honorable Moses Kuria. Order. Honorable members, I go on to propose a question, which is that the Energy Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2017, be now read a third time. Should I go ahead to put the question? I go on to put the question, honorable members, which is that the Energy Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2017, be now read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next.
A bill for an act of parliament to consolidate the laws relating to energy, to provide for national and county government functions in relation to energy, to provide for the establishment, powers, and functions of the energy sector entities, promotion of renewable energy, exploration, recovery, and commercial utilization of geothermal energy, regulation of mainstream and downstream petroleum and coal activities, regulation, production, supply, and use of electricity and other energy forms, and for the connected purposes.
Order number 10. Order number 10, Committee of the Whole House.
honorable members, we are going ahead to consider the Petroleum Exploration, Development and Production Bill, National Assembly Bill number 48 of 2017.
New clauses 99J, 99K, 99L, 99M, 99N, 99O, 99P, 99Q, 99R, 99S, 99T, 99U, 99V, 99W, 99X, 99Y, 99Z.
I go on to call the mover to move second reading of the new clauses.
Number 5, is it?
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, I move that clause 99J to said be now read a second time. Honorable Chair, these are parts of the part 5 of the Energy Bill. Initially, the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum were one. Then what happened is that when we were drafting the initial bill, the Energy Bill, the petroleum and the energy were all lumped into together. So what we did is that we now decided to separate the two ministries, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. And therefore, the two bills were now had to be separated. So we removed parts of the part 5, which we deleted, you can remember in the Energy Bill. Those are the sections that we deleted. Now, those sections that were deleted are now being moved because they were not issues of energy. They were issues of petroleum. Now they are being moved into the Petroleum Bill, and that is where we are now bringing this. And what you look, basically, this is basically in reference to the issues of license, how the license are supposed to be replacement of license, transfer of license, or permits, and this is what this section is talking about. So I move and ask Honorable Elijah to second.
Well, Speaker, I second Dr. Pukose's amendments as a member of the Energy Committee. Thank you.
Very well, Honorable Ojiambo. Honorable members, I go on to propose the question that the new clauses 99J through to clause 99Z be now read a second time.
Put the question. Put the question.
Let's contribute here. Let's put the question first. I can put
Honorable members, let's proceed on to complete the second reading. Then you'll have a chance to contribute. And I go on to put the question that the new clause 99J, clauses 99J through to clause 99Z be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye?
Aye.
Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I go on to propose a question that the new clause 99J through to 99Z be part of the bill. So, honorable members, I can see Honorable Wahungu Wamalwa of Kiminini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, we do agree with what Honorable Bukose has put across, but the issue, you know, when you talk of the ministry was split into two, what he failed to say, maybe shall have...
Please use your microphone, Honorable
What he
Wamalwa.
failed to, what I expected him to have said should have explained maybe as a result of the executive order, it's only the executive order that can split the ministries. So it led to this ABCD. But unfortunately, this sergeant, a friend of mine, forgot. So we support. Thank you.
Honorable Tongi Nyagaka.
Madam Speaker, I agree with the amendment as moved by Honorable Daktari, the only sergeant in the House. However, he would have qualified his statement to say that he is doing that not because there is anything wrong with what we did in the last Parliament, but it's because of the new dispensation that we have in place. That way, we will not have issues. Because what happens, Madam Speaker, you might want to ask yourself, what happens if we change again and we merge the two ministries? We have the Ministry of Energy and Mining. Are we then again going to amend the law to, to resonate with the changes that we are making now? That's why we thought it would have been nice if we said that this we are doing it, it's short term, but going forward we might want to match it together for purposes of unity and synergizing the effort so that we can achieve a better result from the oil that we are getting in from Turkana. But I support, Madam Speaker, the amendment.
Very well. Honorable Murungi Kaduri. Doesn't seem to be here. Honorable Lomboko, member for Emuhaya.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Basically, what I had wanted to raise has been raised by the two early members, that there was need for a justification, and indeed that has been said by two more members earlier than me, and therefore moving forward, we shall ask Daktari to be doing that if, or any other person who will be involved in the same scenario to justify. I support. Thank you.
Honorable Nikal Wambura.
Chair, as I support, I think we need to look at the issue of procedure. As much as the procedure is right, these two bills are actually very close, and they were discussed at different times. And what has happened is, because they were split, some have been moved. I would just like clarification that before the sections were moved, were they conclusively canvassed when the other was being discussed? Or they were just, because we may miss a point that they were not discussed when they were being discussed in the petroleum, and then they are coming into the energy, and again they're not being really properly canvassed. And further than that, the truth is, many of our members seem not to be really following what is happening. It's not right for members to actually pass something if they're not very clear. And time should not be a major issue. It's good to brief members. I would have even suggested item by item to know what it means. This is for a long time to come. And we just pass it because we want to pass time, pass it quickly. I think that would not be proper. Yeah. So I need that guidance. Otherwise, I would support that. Were they properly canvassed when the other bill was being canvassed?
Chair, I'll give you your chance, but I can see, let me give Honorable Ochieng. Do you want to contribute? No, okay. We can have the chair, Honorable Pukose.
Thank you, Chair. Just to be able to address the issues that have been raised by the members. Initially, these were two bills. We had the energy bill and the petroleum bill. In the initial energy bill, because the ministry was Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, then all these clauses that we have brought them, we have transferred to here, were in the energy bill that we've just passed in motion number 9. So when they were there, what happened is that the sections that were concerning petroleum, we decided to remove them from the energy bill and put them into this other petroleum bill. It went through the whole process of public participation. It went all through the whole process of the committee going through it. Now, when you look at the energy bill that we passed, in part 5, we decided to delete the whole of part 5. That part 5 that was deleted, it is what it has been now transferred to the petroleum bill, because they were not matters that were concerning the energy. They were matters that were concerning petroleum. So we removed them and brought them into the petroleum bill. And the issue of the splitting of the ministries, this is an executive order, that we now have a Ministry of Mining and Petroleum. But in as far as matters pertaining to petroleum initially, we had the Petroleum Act, which is not sufficient enough to cover all the issues that have been raised here. Because initially, as a country, we were not extracting petroleum. Petroleum is a new phenomenon in this country. After the discovery of petroleum in Lokichar, then we also have other blocks. We have some 35 blocks within the Lamu Basin. We have, then the other, all of them are 37 blocks. The other blocks are within the Rift Valley and also within the Turkana area. Now, when we start doing the issue of extraction of petroleum, there are matters that are going to rise in as far as upstream, midstream, and even downstream. And for us to be able to perform these duties, we must have laws and regulations that are going to guide us. Now, these laws in the initial bill, they were done, but they were put into the energy bill. Now, now that we have a sector that is complete, we decided that let's in the process of making laws, it will mean you delete on the other one, but when it comes to this other one, you are bringing it is a new clause. I think we get it. It's a new clause in as far as this is concerned. But in the other one, it is deletion. But what you deleted, it does not go into waste. What we deleted is now what we have transferred into here, but in the process of bringing it here, we cannot say new, we have to bring it as new clause. These are the technicalities in as far as the lawmaking process is
very
concerned.
well, Chair. I think
you've
made your point loud and clear.
To sound a bit of warning here. The truth is, members are not clear. And that, what you said is exactly right. I have actually the 3 documents here, the bill and that. But what is not right is members actually are not clear. If you say 99J, 99H, 99, we are passing and we don't know. So it would have been good to say H is doing this.
Honorable
H
Nikal.
is doing this. I agree, and we let it go.
Honorable Nikal.
Yes.
You are very senior and you understand how the order paper outlines this, the proposed amendments. Look at your order paper, you will see them. And members should always be guided by the order paper, which clearly spells out all the clauses that we are talking about.
Chair, I agree. And as they lined out, I'll let it pass, Chair. I'll let it pass.
Okay, I think I'll... Chair?
Chair, in the energy bill, it is part 5. When it comes to the petroleum bill, we are moving that part 5 now to part 9. And that is why it is now becoming from 99 and continuous. The numbering in the energy bill is not going to be the same numbering as the petroleum bill. They are going to vary because of its position. Which position are you going to place it? That is why now we start numbering it.
I just wanted to, as a member of the committee, get the indulgence of the Honorable Nikal and tell him that this bill was canvassed through a number of instruments, public participation, and as you're aware, the President already flagged off on Sunday oil that is going to Lamu.
What we have in Logicha is 80,000 barrels in stock. So for purposes of expediency, it's prudent that this bill is passed in its entirety based on the advice from my chair, because it will help this country. And more importantly, maybe you may not be aware.
Your point
Okay.
is order.
Thank you.
You cannot have those exchanges,
Okay. Thank you.
Honorable Nikal. And we are not debating, members. So I think the point, you're out of order. You are out of order, member for Emuhaya. You don't even have the mic from me. And so you are addressing me inappropriately. So I think the issues canvassed have been properly enumerated by the chair. And again, members should look at the order paper. And Honorable Nikal, I think there is an issue of numbering, how the numbering has been done. And it's just a matter of drafting. But the content is there. Honorable members, I'll go on to put the question. And I put the question that new clauses 99J through to 99X. Honorable members, I'll say it again. I go on to put the question that new clauses 99J through to 99Z be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clauses 99A, 99BB, 99CC, 99DD, 99EE, 99FF, 99GG, 99HH, 99II.
Chair? I now call upon the chair to move the second reading of the new clauses.
Thank you, Chair. I now move that the new clauses be read a second time. Clause 99AA.
Honorable Serone, keep Korir.
Madam Chair, I was preparing to contribute on the other one because most of the time you find that the agenda number 11, motion number 11.
Okay, honorable members, we're in committee of the whole house, so you can take out your cards and then you put them back so that we don't confuse the chair. I'll go on to put the question that new clauses 99AA through to clauses 99II be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
First schedule.
I propose a question that the first schedule be part of the bill. And I go on to put the question that first schedule be part of the bill. The ayes have it.
Second schedule.
I propose the question that the second schedule be part of the schedule be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
I propose the question that clause 2 be part of the bill. Mover, you have an amendment?
Honorable Chair, I put that clause 2 be amended by inserting the following new definitions in their proper alphabetical sequence. Adulterated petroleum, just as per the order paper. And then Honorable Chair, these amendments, these definitions had been put into the energy bill. Now we're just transferring them from the energy bill to the petroleum bill. And these are the definitions as per the order paper.
Very well, Chair. I go on to propose a question that clause 2 be amended as proposed. Members wishing to contribute? Honorable Mbui?
Chair, actually, I had wanted to contribute in the previous. I was a bit curious why we are doing that as opposed to just continuing from 99 to 100 and going forward. I was just curious, and I'd wanted to ask that. That's why I put my card. Chair.
Yeah, Honorable Member, like I pointed out, it's a drafting technique. I think drafters are the ones who would best understand, but that is the order in which they do the numbering. But the substance and content remains the same. I go on to put the question that clause 2 be amended as proposed. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the question that clause 2, as amended, be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Long title.
I go on to propose a question that the long title be part of the bill. Mover?
Honorable Chair, I wish to put the amendment that the long title of the bill be amended by inserting the words regulation of midstream and downstream petroleum immediately after the words apply to upstream petroleum operations. This is just in aligning it with the petroleum bill, because we're just doing a petroleum bill. And when we talk of upstream, midstream means the pipeline where you are transporting the petroleum. And then the upstream means where the downstream means distribution. Then the upstream is where you are extracting the petroleum. So we're just aligning the bill to deal with the petroleum matters.
I go on to propose a question that the long title be amended as proposed. I see no requests to contribute. Oh, Honorable Nikal?
Chair, I just would ask the chair, indulge the chair, to put a little more explanation, because I see it's referring to petroleum, but even this also is making a reference to petroleum. So what difference does it make?
Chair? Did you get the question?
No, I'm not getting.
Honorable Nikal, please come clear.
I also, it's not getting the significance of the amendment, because it's bringing in line to talk about petroleum, but even in the petroleum bill as it is still making reference to petroleum. So just indulging him, if he can afford the time, to just say it again and see to me what it really means.
Chair?
When we talk of, what I explained to him is that, to the House, is that we're talking of regulation of midstream and downstream petroleum, because initially it was not covering the midstream and the downstream. Midstream means transportation of petroleum. Then where you are using the pipeline, or you are using road, or you are using rail, that is transportation of petroleum. Then when we talk of the downstream, we are talking of downstream meaning distribution at the area of the petrol stations, gas stations, and all that. So we want the bill to cover the whole thing, right from the point of extraction, that's the upstream, midstream, and downstream. Okay.
Very well. I'll go on to put the question that the long title be amended as proposed. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. And I go on to put the question that the long title as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Title.
I propose the question that the title be part of the bill. Honorable members, I go on to put the question that the title be the title of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I go on to propose a question that clause 1 be part of the bill. Mover, you have an amendment?
Honorable Chair, I wish to bring the amendment as per the order paper, whereby that clause 1 of the bill be amended by deleting the words exploration, development, and production. This follows what we had just done up in exploration, development, and production. This is basically limiting it to the upstream. Now that we brought the midstream and the downstream, then the title has to change so that it's the petroleum now is the issue of both exploration, development, and production, and also transportation, which is midstream, and also distribution, which is at the downstream.
Very well. I'll go on to propose a question that clause 1 be amended as proposed. I'll go on to put the question, seeing no request for contribution. I put the question that clause 1 be amended as proposed. Will as many as of that opinion say aye?
Aye.
Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I go on to put the question that clause 1 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye?
Aye.
Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Mover.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee to report to the House its consideration of a petroleum exploration, development, and production bill, National Assembly Bill number 48 of 2017, and its approval thereof with amendments.
I put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the petroleum exploration, development, and production bill, National Assembly Bill number 48 of 2017, and its approval thereof with amendments. Will as many as of that opinion say aye?
Aye.
Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Honorable members, Madam Speaker.
Still within the procedures as raised by the honorable member of an issue of recommittal, which is within our standing orders, and of course we did raise sometimes. Allow me give the chairperson to just comment on the same.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the Petroleum Bill, Clause 8.5, the amendment that the committee of the whole House made before we went on recess, we adjourned on that motion, was that 5% was to be, the division of revenue, 5% to the community, 20% to the county, and then we deleted the capping that was there, and instead we introduced a new clause that we did an amendment whereby Parliament shall review within 10 years the formula for the sharing of the revenue from the petroleum. And that one is what we had done and is on record on that area, which is in line with the negotiations that the members from the governor and the team from Turkana and the president agreed on.
Thank you, Chairperson. I must give direction also that the honorable member addressed an issue on the same Loromain, and I wish you, the chairperson, and Loromain could convince Loromain, honorable, the member for Turkana South. And honorable Loromain, are you okay with that? It's a house of procedures and rules. We cannot, skip some steps.
Yes, Madam Speaker, that was a hot issue. You remember we did a lot of consultation. We met the leadership of the House. We even met with all the Turkana leaders. Went and met with the other leaders, the president and his entire team. And we consulted and we agreed, as the chair has actually moved. So what we really, the concerns of the committee is whether what we agreed as leadership has been put in the law without actually jumping up and down. So I wanted that assurity so that Kenyans in the whole nation will hear, and the people also of the Turkana County will also affirm that whatever we agreed has actually been put in law. So that is actually, I wanted it to go in record so that we are not changing each other and we cannot eat our own words. Yes.
The honorable member for Turkana South, I totally agree with you. This was your proposal. I remember you had proposed a recommittal to the clause. And I'm happy to hear that you consulted with the chair and you are satisfied to this. You are satisfied. And again, there's no harm for the chair to clarify. Chair, can you clarify to the honorable member? Because he did a great job to represent the people and also bring that proposed amendment. Yes?
Honorable Speaker, I can confirm that that is what is in the law, that in clause 85, in the sharing of the revenue, 5% shall go to the community, 20% to the county, the other 75% to the whole country. And then we also deleted the clause on capping. And then we put in a clause that Parliament shall review the sharing revenue formula within 10 years. I can confirm that.
Thank you. Honourable members, with that, and of course clarification from the chairperson and to the satisfaction of the honourable, we are not able to put the question, the proposed, because of the obvious reasons. Next order. There was a concern. I've already called for the
Order number 11, the Kenya Coast Guard Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2017, second reading.
The mover. Honourable members, we are on order number 11, Kenya Coast Guard Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2017. We are resuming a debate interrupted on the Wednesday, April 25th, 2018, in the afternoon sitting. Should get interest to this, members to speak to this. Pukose Robert and Debes, are you to speak to this? You've walked out. Nakara Lodepe, member for Turkana Central, again. Nakana, member for Turkana again. You are the one on the floor.
Thank you, Madam. I wanted to comment on the first one on petroleum because I wanted to confirm if what was said has been deleted and we have voted within the whole committee of the House. But now it has gone over. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable South Imenti? Honorable Member for Seme, the third allocated day, report of the Committee of the Whole House on the Energy Bill, National Assembly, Bill number 50 of 2017. Members who rightly participated, we thank the members of the chair of the Parliament. We did Committee of the Whole House on the two very important bills, the Petroleum and the Energy Bill, and the Kenya Coast Guard Service Bill and Tax Amendment Bill. Thanks to the members who have been present, and now the public and the people elected, you can know what you have been elected to do. So, honorable members, the time being 5:50 p.m., this House stands adjourned till the Tuesday, 12th June 2018 at 2:30 p.m. I thank you all.